How I use photography or use photography is to like underline that you're caring about someone or something. And then photography was very like an emotional tool to speak about something that maybe in words you cannot really say so easily also. The relationship was really made by photography in a sense. I mean, the process of making the book started or linked to this slide projector over a couple of years when I was studying at like the art academy in Hamburg or also before in Berlin. I would always exhibit these images, but I would always show them in the slide projector because then I was kind of still open about the project. I didn't have to find like a fixed form, and I really liked that like 2 years would pass by and I could like add a couple of more images, and then this kind of carousel would just keep spinning, and you know, I take some images out and then maybe some images I didn't like anymore. Or my book is called Looking at My Brother. That shows images I took of my 2 younger brothers over a time span of 13 years or so. It started with me photographing or being interested in photography when I was 15 years old, through my grandparents, who also were photographers. Yeah, when I was 15, then my brother Mats was born, and then Jona. So I would photograph them while we were still living in the same house. Then at some point I was like, okay, this could be an interesting long-term project, or you know, like, I don't know, because in the beginning I was just trying to learn how to photograph, and then using my brothers to do that. So then I was doing these portraits of them. That's why also this title, Looking at My Brother, it's really like me looking at Mats, Mats looking at Jona, Jona looking at me, photographing. It's really like how we look at each other, kind of. I mean, I grew up with my grandparents being photographers, being landscape photographers. So my granddad was photographing landscapes and making a big archive of images of landscape photos that he used for postcards and puzzles and calendars and things like this. Very like German stock photography, blue sky and things like this. But he would always use like this Leinhof large format camera and like a Pentax 6.7 and very nice cameras. And then my grandmother would always accompany him on these trips, and they would always photograph each other. So then when I was a child, I kind of grew up with these images that photography, or like the camera itself, was a bit like a member of the family. And I also really liked that this project didn't have like a clear start or an end in that way. And in the book, I wanted to keep the same notion or keep the same idea of this unfinished process. Then I think the idea was really nice to start with the first image where Mats has his eyes closed. This I really liked for the first image to be the start image or the first image. But then the last image, for example, in the book, basically the same image taken a couple of seconds after that, where the flash had like a wrong sync time. So basically just half of the image got exposed. And for me that was quite like a beautiful gesture of seeing how this entire book and these years were happening just between those 2 images. And then suddenly sometimes you turn the page and then you really jump back 8 years in time or so. And this kind of back and forth I really enjoyed because it reminded me how I think about my own childhood somehow. The nomination for the Photo Book Prize for me is giving me a lot of value, of course, for the work. It is a lot of it is very important that now in the first year after leaving school or university, I mean, at the moment I'm working towards an exhibition in April. It's basically like images I started taking since I'm in Sweden, but I'm working more with making prints, and I'm also, since Looking at My Brother was my first book, now I'm really, I don't know, driven by I want to make more books, kind of.